Look at them. Observe the way an Aeldari moves across a battlefield, or how they simply stand amidst the ruins of a dying world. There's a fluid, unnatural grace to every gesture, a precision that makes the finest human athlete look like a staggering infant. To the uninitiated, it looks like peak evolution, a race so refined that even their violence is a form of high art. But you must look closer. You must see the tension behind the elegance. That grace you see isn't a gift, it is a cage. In the grim darkness of the 40th millennium, for the survivors of the craft worlds, elegance is the only thing keeping them from a fate so horrific that death would be a mercy. Every step they take is calculated. Every emotion they feel is filtered through a prism of ironclad discipline. They are a race of masters who have become slaves to their own mastery. When you see a striking scorpion move with the silence of a shadow, or a farseer weave the threads of fate, you aren't witnessing freedom. You are witnessing a desperate, lifelong struggle against an internal abyss. The Aeldari are a psychic race capable of feeling heights of joy and depths of despair that would shatter a human mind in seconds. To live without restraint is to invite the great enemy. Imagine for a moment having to monitor every single thought you have, fearing that a moment of genuine, unbridled passion could act as a beacon for a predator waiting in the warp. This is the paradox of their perfection. Their beauty is a mask, a deceptive layer of porcelain crafted to hide a soul that is constantly screaming in terror. They are the most sophisticated beings in the galaxy, and they are terrified. But why must they live this way? Why is a race that once ruled the stars now forced to hide behind rigid structures and ritualized lifestyles? To understand the deceptive grace of the path, we must first understand the wound that never heals, the moment their own souls birthed a god of hunger. Only then can we see the path for what it truly is, a stay of execution. Before we descend further into the psychic torment of the Aeldari, I must ask, are you prepared to face the darkness of the far future with us? If you seek to decode the hidden truths of the 40K universe, subscribe to Silent Imperium and join our ranks. Your support is the soul stone that keeps this channel alive. Now, let us look back at the fall. To talk about the Aeldari path is to talk about a scar that spans 10,000 years. Long before humanity crawled out of its cradle, the Aeldari Empire was a marvel beyond comprehension. They had conquered death, labor, and scarcity. But in their boredom, they turned inward. They sought sensations that no physical body should endure, pushing the boundaries of hedonism until the very fabric of reality could no longer hold their depravity. You have heard the stories of Slaanesh's birth, but consider the psychological weight of being a survivor. Imagine knowing that your ancestors, your very DNA, are responsible for the greatest catastrophe in galactic history. The fall didn't just destroy planets, it shattered the Aeldari psyche. They realized that their greatest strength, their intense emotional and psychic depth, was also their ultimate vulnerability. They were too loud for the universe. The birth of She Who Thirsts created a permanent link between every Aeldari soul and the maw of the warp. For you, death is an end or a mystery. For them, death is the beginning of eternal digestion. Slaanesh is always there, a persistent whispering at the edge of their minds, waiting for a single lapse in concentration. This is the context of the path. It is not a lifestyle choice, it is a desperate survival strategy. After the fall, the survivors on the craft worlds realized they could no longer afford the luxury of being individuals in the way we understand it. They had to find a way to experience their vast emotional spectrum without letting it spiral out of control. They needed a dam to hold back the flood of their own nature. This realization gave birth to the rigid structure of the Asuryani way. When you see an Aeldari today, you are seeing a creature that has been traumatized by its own history. They carry the guilt of a dead empire and the fear of a hungry god. Their grace is a defensive posture, a way of moving through life without leaving a psychic footprint large enough for Slaanesh to grab. It is a life of constant, exhausting vigilance, performed with the poise of a dancer. Consider the tragedy of a race that remembers what it was like to be gods, now forced to live like ghosts. They are hyper-aware of their decline. Every time an Aeldari looks at the stars, they see the monuments of their failure. The grace we admire is actually the stillness of a person walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. If they wobble, if they feel too much, the rope snaps. This history informs every ritual, every piece of armor, and every word spoken on a craft world. They do not talk about the fall often, but they live it every second. The path is the architect of their survival, but as we shall see, the architecture is built from the very obsessions that destroyed them in the first place. It is a cycle of repression that defines their entire existence. The path, or the Iciel, is the most complex social and psychological system ever devised. It is a series of careers or focuses that an Aeldari chooses to follow for a period of their life. One year, they might be a poet on the path of the artisan. The next decade, they might be a warrior on the path of the striking scorpion. But these aren't just jobs, they are total immersions. When an Aeldari enters a path, they commit their entire being to it. If they are a gardener, they don't just plant seeds, they become the embodiment of growth and botanical precision. They focus so intensely on the minutiae of their craft that there is no room left in their mind for the noise of Slaanesh. Obsession, once their downfall, has been weaponized into a shield of focus. This is the architecture of their sanity. By compartmentalizing their lives into these rigid paths, they can experience life in segments. They can taste the thrill of the hunt on the path of the warrior. But once they leave that path, they perform a ritual of unmasking. They leave the persona behind, shedding the emotions associated with it to ensure those feelings don't take root and grow into a dangerous obsession. Think of it as a series of masks. You wear the mask of the healer to understand compassion. Then you put it away and wear the mask of the dreamer to explore the subconscious. But you never, ever let the masks bleed into each other. The separation must be absolute. This is why Aeldari society seems so cold and ritualistic to outsiders. They aren't being arrogant, they are being careful. However, the deceptive nature of the path lies in its cost. To achieve this level of focus, an Aeldari must sacrifice spontaneity. They can never truly let go. Even their leisure is ritualized. This creates a society that is technically perfect, but emotionally stifled. They are masters of everything, and yet, in a sense, they are masters of nothing, because they are forbidden from truly owning their experiences. You must understand that the path is also a prison. An Aeldari who feels they are losing control might jump from path to path, desperately trying to find a structure that can hold them. But the more they jump, the more they realize that the void inside them isn't going away. The path doesn't cure the hunger of Slaanesh. It just hides the soul in a very elaborate, very beautiful maze. And here is the dark secret of the architecture. The paths are dangerous. Some paths are so alluring, so perfectly suited to an individual soul that they might never want to leave. They might become lost upon the path. In a race that prizes balance above all else, to be lost in an obsession is a fate worse than death. It is the beginning of the end for their identity. As we look at the specific paths, especially the path of the warrior, we see where this grace becomes a weapon and where the mask becomes the face. The Aeldari warrior is a masterpiece of martial skill, but beneath the helm, the individual is slowly being erased by the very role they have chosen to play. Now consider the path of the warrior. For a race that abhors the primal urges of the warp, war is a necessary but terrifying evil. To fight, an Aeldari must adopt an aspect, a specific facet of Cain, their god of murder. They do not just pick up a blade, they put on a war mask. This is a psychic barrier that separates their civilian self from the killer they must become. When the mask is on, they feel no guilt, no hesitation, only the cold, rhythmic efficiency of the strike. But what if the mask refuses to come off? This is the tragedy of the Exarch. These are individuals who have followed the path of the warrior for too long, their souls becoming so intertwined with the art of killing that they can no longer return to civilian life. They are lost upon the path. To their kin, an Exarch is both a respected leader and a living horror, a reminder that the discipline of the path can fail, consuming the person entirely. Imagine the horror of looking in a mirror and no longer recognizing the person beneath the armor. For an Exarch, the war mask has fused with their very soul. They are no longer a poet, a lover, or a friend. They are merely a vessel for an ancient, bloody tradition. They live in the shrines of Cain, isolated from the rest of society because their psychic presence is too loud, too stained by the joy of the kill. The deceptive grace of a dire avenger or a howling banshee masks a terrifying truth. They are one bad day away from losing their identity forever. When an Exarch dies, their soul is not just stored in a stone, it is added to the armor itself, a gestalt consciousness of every warrior who wore it before. It is a form of immortality that is essentially a collective madness, a loss of the self into a sea of endless war. This is the ultimate price of their survival. To protect their craft world, some must sacrifice their humanity, or the Aeldari equivalent of it. They become living statues of murder, draped in the finest silks and gems, moving with a grace that is no longer human or even truly alive. They are the ghosts of a war that never ends, trapped in a cycle of violence that they once thought they could control. As we witness the slow erosion of the Aeldari soul, one must wonder if the struggle is even worth the cost. If you are finding this decoding of the Grimdark reality insightful, please take a moment to like this video. It helps the machine spirit of the algorithm recognize our efforts. Now, let us look at the internal rot that the path is designed to hide. The path is built on a fundamental lie that obsession can be managed. The Aeldari believe that by focusing intensely on one thing at a time, they can satisfy their innate need for intensity without alerting Slaanesh. But obsession is a hungry thing. It doesn't like to be put in a box. For many Aeldari, the transition between paths becomes harder and harder as the centuries roll by, and the deceptive grace begins to crack. You must realize that for a being who lives for millennia, the repetition of the path can lead to a spiritual exhaustion. Some begin to seek forbidden paths, or they stay on a single path, not out of duty, but because they are terrified of the emptiness that awaits them in the transition. This is the danger of obsession. The very tool they use to stay sane becomes the anchor that drags them down into a narrow, hollow existence. Consider the psychological strain of never being allowed to be you. If your entire life is a series of roles, where is the core?
For many Aeldari, the self becomes a flickering shadow, lost between the requirements of the path of the artisan and the path of the seer. They become masters of form, but they lose the substance. Their grace becomes a performance for an audience of one, the god waiting to eat them. But what happens when the path fails completely? In the dark corners of the craft worlds, there are those who can no longer maintain the discipline. They don't fall to Slaanesh immediately. Instead, they become outcasts. They leave the rigid structure of the path to wander the stars as rangers or corsairs. They trade the safety of the path for the dangerous freedom of their own emotions. It is a gamble with the highest possible stakes. These outcasts are a testament to the fact that the path is not a perfect solution. It is a heavy, suffocating weight that many simply cannot bear. To live as an Aeldari is to live in a state of permanent psychological repression. The grace you see is the result of a mind that is constantly policing itself, weeding out any thought that might lead to a gift from the Dark Prince.
We cannot discuss the Aeldari without acknowledging the shadow that looms over every word they speak. Slaanesh, the Dark Prince, is not just a god to them, she is a biological reality. The Aeldari did not just create Slaanesh, they are psychically tethered to her. Every time an Aeldari experiences a moment of unbridled joy, pain, or pride, Slaanesh tastes it. The gifts of Slaanesh are not rewards, but the agonizing pull of a predator on its prey. This is the horrifying reality of their existence. You might feel a moment of passion and simply move on. For an Aeldari, that passion is a flare fired into a dark forest full of wolves. The grace they exhibit is a way of moving through the world with zero friction, leaving no psychic wake for the great enemy to follow. They must be as silent as a ghost and as cold as a void. Imagine the sheer mental energy required to live like this. Every second of every day, for thousands of years, you must maintain a shield of indifference or ritualized focus. If you slip, if you truly love, if you truly hate, you are feeding the monster that wants to consume your soul for eternity. This is the deceptive grace. It isn't an expression of beauty, it is a camouflage. The Aeldari call Slaanesh she who thirsts because the hunger is never satisfied. The god of excess doesn't want their bodies, she wants the psychic energy of their suffering. This is why the Dark Eldar, the Drukhari, chose a different, more twisted path of survival. But for the craft world Aeldari, the only answer is the path. They choose to starve their emotions so that Slaanesh might starve as well. But the hunger is patient. Slaanesh is a god of the warp where time has no meaning. She can wait 10,000 years for a single soul to stumble. This constant pressure creates a society of high-functioning, traumatized survivors. Their art, their music, and their war are all echoes of a fear that they can never truly escape. The grace is the silence before a scream that has been held back for 10 millennia. If the path is the cage that holds the Aeldari soul during life, then the Spirit Stone, the Waystone, is the fortress that protects it after death. You see them worn as jewelry, glowing with a soft inner light against the chest of every craft worlder. But do not mistake them for simple ornaments. They are the most precious and most terrifying objects in the galaxy. Each stone is a psychically receptive gem designed to catch the soul at the exact moment the body fails, preventing it from slipping into the warp where she who thirsts waits. Without these stones, the Aeldari would have vanished millennia ago. But the grace of the Spirit Stone is a heavy one.
Consider the psychological burden of carrying your own tomb around your neck. From the moment of birth, an Aeldari knows that their eternal safety depends on a small piece of crystallized psychic energy. If that stone is lost, or if it shatters in the heat of battle, their soul is forfeit. There is no heaven for the Aeldari. There is only the stone or the maw. The process of obtaining these stones is a grimdark reality in itself. They cannot be manufactured. They must be harvested from the crone worlds, the ancient Aeldari homeworlds now swallowed by the Eye of Terror. Imagine the irony. To save their souls, they must repeatedly return to the very heart of the hell that destroyed their empire. Every waystone is paid for in blood and the constant risk of total psychic annihilation. This is the price of their deceptive grace, a life sustained by raiding the ruins of their own shame. Once a soul is captured within a stone, it is brought back to the craft world and integrated into the infinity circuit. This is the living core of the world ship, a psychic matrix where the dead dwell in a collective, dreamlike state. Here, the grace of the individual is finally merged into the grace of the race. They become part of something larger, an ancestral memory that guides the living. But is it truly peace, or is it just another layer of the cage, an eternity of being a ghost in a machine? Now imagine the horror of a spirit stone falling into the hands of an enemy. For the Aeldari, this is a fate worse than any physical torture. To have your ancestors' souls used as fuel, or worse, intentionally shattered to feed a chaos god, is a psychic wound that can be felt across the entire craft world. This vulnerability is why they fight with such desperate, elegant ferocity. They are not just fighting for territory or resources, they are fighting to prevent the eternal digestion of their grandparents. Think about the grace of an Aeldari Wraith Guard, a towering robotic construct powered by a spirit stone. These are the dead, plucked from their slumber in the infinity circuit and forced back into the realm of the living to fight once more. There is something profoundly tragic about a race so diminished that they must use their dead as soldiers. The Wraith Guard move with a haunting, slow-motion elegance, a ghostly echo of the life they once lived, proving that even in death, the Aeldari cannot escape the requirement of being a tool. The Spirit Stone is the ultimate expression of Aeldari desperation. It is a technological solution to a spiritual nightmare. It allows them to persist, to maintain their culture and their pride, but it also tethers them forever to the physical realm. They are a race that cannot move on. They are stuck in a permanent state of almost death, clinging to their stones with the same white-knuckled grip that they apply to the path. Their beauty is the beauty of a preserved corpse, kept perfect by the very thing that prevents it from returning to the universe. As we look at the internal architecture of the Spirit Stone, we see the final deceptive layer. It promises protection, but it delivers a different kind of imprisonment. The soul inside is safe from Slaanesh, but it is also isolated from the true cycle of life and rebirth. They are the golden prisoners, waiting in the dark for a salvation that may never come. This is the weight they carry, a grace that is as fragile as glass and as heavy as an empire's worth of sins.
We have explored the rigid discipline of the path, the murderous masks of the warriors, and the desperate sanctuary of the Spirit Stones. What remains is the final decoding of the Aeldari spirit. If you were to strip away the armor, the rituals, and the psychic shields, what would you find? You would find a soul of porcelain, beautiful, intricate, and utterly fragile. The Aeldari are a race defined not by their power, but by their vulnerability. Their entire civilization is a grand performance designed to hide the fact that they are breaking.
The deceptive grace we see on the battlefield or in the council chambers is a survival mechanism. It is the poise of a species that knows it is dying, yet refuses to go quietly into the night. They maintain their elegance because to do otherwise would be to admit defeat. If they stop being perfect, if they allow themselves to be as messy and emotional as humans, they lose the only shield they have left. Their arrogance is not a sign of strength, it is a symptom of their terror. Consider the tragedy of their existence. They are the most psychically gifted race in the galaxy, yet they must live in a state of permanent psychic silence. They are capable of the greatest art, yet they must channel that creativity into rigid, repetitive paths. They are, in every sense, a race of giants living in a world of glass. One wrong move, one moment of genuine, unbridled feeling, and everything they have built, every soul they have saved, shatters into a million pieces. But perhaps there is a strange kind of hope in this deception. By pretending to be graceful, by acting as if they are still the masters of the stars, they maintain a sense of purpose. The path gives them a reason to wake up in the morning, even if that morning is spent on a dying ship in a hostile universe. Their grace is a middle finger to the gods of chaos, a statement that even in the face of eternal hunger, they will remain refined, disciplined, and beautiful. The Aeldari are a warning to all of us. They are a mirror of what happens when a civilization reaches its peak and finds only an abyss waiting for it. They remind us that sophistication is not a shield against darkness, and that the higher you climb, the further you have to fall. Their story is one of a long, elegant decline, a slow-motion collapse performed with the dignity of a tragedy. They are the masters of the deceptive grace, and their failure is the most beautiful thing in the grim darkness of the far future. In the end, we must ask, who is truly more free? The human who lives a short, brutal life of ignorance, or the Aeldari who lives for thousands of years in a cage of their own making? The grace of the Aeldari is a gift to the galaxy, a final flicker of light before the total darkness of the Tyrannid shadow or the Necron awakening. But for the Aeldari themselves, that grace is a curse. It is the weight of the crown they can never take off, and the silence of a soul that has forgotten how to scream. Now imagine a single Aeldari standing alone on the edge of a craft world, looking out into the cold, uncaring void. They adjust their waystone, they tighten their war mask, and they prepare to walk the path for one more day. There is no joy in their heart, only the cold comfort of discipline. They move with a grace that could break your heart, a beauty that is as sharp as a blade. This is the reality of the Aeldari. They are not gods and they are not monsters. They are simply survivors, draped in the finest porcelain, waiting for the wind to finally blow hard enough to break them.